Hello, a warm welcome to everyone. I'm Haripriya, Assistant Professor, Department of Costume Design and Fashion, and I'm going to present a video on fundamentals of apparel designing. So these are all the contents we are going to see in this video. Pressing tools, seams and seam finishes types, working of seams and seam finishes. So what does mean by pressing tools? Pressing is an important part of sewing and is necessary to give your projects a professional finish. With the right pressing tool, you will be able to press seams with ease, remove pesky wrinkles from the fabric. So what are the types and what are the needs? Steam iron. A steam iron that produce steams is a must have when sewing. Ironing board. Along with the steam iron, you need a surface to press your fabric. Ironing board cover, pressing cloth, tailor's ham, seam roll, sleeve board, iron slope plate guard. So these are all the parts. What is mean by seam? A seam is a method of joining two or more pieces of material together by a row of stitches. They gives definite shape and appearance to the garments. Seams must be flat, neat and strong. There are many different kinds of seams than clothing construction. Seams are classified by their types: plain or lap, bound, flat, and the position in the finished garment are center, back seam, inseam, and side seam. Seams are finished with a variety of techniques to prevent raveling of raw fabric edges and to neaten the inside of garments. Purpose of most of these seams is purely functional and are called as constructional seams. These constructional seams should be as inconspicuous and as flat as possible. There are also some seams which are used for decorative purpose. These are made conspicuous in order to give design and line effect to the garment. All seams when finished should be smooth and even in width. Seam is a joint between two or more piles of pieces of material, whereas a stitch is formed by one or more thread or loops of threads. Both of the seams and stitch type affects the quality of sewn garment, which is characterized in the terms of strength, durability, elasticity, security, and appearance. So what is mean by seam and seam finishes? Seams are essential element to every garment and fabric accessory as they join the material together to create the items. Seams are used for hems and to finish the necklines and edges. So what is mean by plain seam? This is the commonest seam that is used for the most functional seams in a garment. Example, side seam of a bodice or a skirt, under arm seams of a sleeve, etc. Place the right side of the material together and cut the edges even. Tack and stitch along the seam line and press seam open. It is the most common seam used in garment making because of its simplicity and quickness in making. It is the moderately strong and is used on firm fabrics. These seams can be used on straight as well as curved edges very easily. Plain seams have the raw edges exposed and are liable to ravel. So sometimes it is desirable to finish the raw edges by means of seam finish. Next, what is French seam? It is a ridge seam and is used on transparent and lightweight fabrics, especially on baby clothes and delicate and transparent fabrics. It, is, it provides a neat and durable finish as a raw edge or completely enclosed the two pieces of materials to be joined and placed together with the wrong side facing and a row of stitching is done. A seam is pressed and turned so that the right side are now together. Crease the first row of stitching so that it is directly on the edge. Tack and stitch along the seam line about 1 by 8 inch from the fold. This seam is finished in two steps. The seam cannot be used on thick and bulky fabrics and on seam that are curved such as armholes and necklines, etc. So next, what is flat seam? This seam is also used in two steps like a French seam. The two layers are placed with the right side facing each other and the plain seam is made on the fitting line. A small amount of seam allowance of one layer is trimmed off over the stitched edge. The other layer is turned over this and the machine stitched on the garment after opening the two layers flat. This seam is also used stitched in two steps. A small amount of seam allowance lapped seam. This seam is commonly used for joining a gathered section to a plain section. The plain area section is folded on the stitch line to the wrong side and pressed. This is placed on the right side of gathered section such that the stitching lines coincide. Tack in the position and machine close to the folded edge. A row of stitching is visible on the right side. Yokes can be stitched this way when joining the curved gather edge. Next, slot seam. This is a variation of lapped seam and is often used at the center front on center back on of skirts, coats and dresses. Machine bast on the seam line of a two pieces separately with the same allowance turned back. Cut 11 by 2 inch width wide underlay of a same or contrasting fabrics. Place the two pieces with the basted seam line on this piece in at a distance required for a contrast color underlay to be visible and machine stitch on the previous basted lines holding all three layers together. This gives a decorative effect when a different colored fabric is used for baking pieces stitched in between the two pieces of fabrics. So what is mean by seam finishes? Seam finishes are made to prevent fraying of raw edges and thus makes the seams more durable. They also provides a neat appearance to the inside of the garments. They can add strength to a seam. Three factors are to be considered to seam finish: the type and the weight of the fabric, the amount and kind of wear and care the garment will receive, whether or not seam will be seen. So, what is mean by pinked finish? This is a quick method which is done by pinking shears. The finish is not bulky but not a suitable finish for fabrics that travel badly. After stitching plain seam, trim off about 1 by 8 inch of the seam allowance using the pinking shears. Then press the seam open. Edge neatening, it stitched finish. On the seam allowance of the pressed open seam, turn under 1 by 4 inch on each edge, seam edge and top stitch close to the fold without catching the garment. It is bulky finish and is not suitable for deeply curved seam. This is mostly used on unlined coats and jackets where the seam allowance is wide. Double stitch finish. After making a plain seam, work an extra line of stitching about 1/4 inch from the raw edge without catching the garment. This is done for a plain unfinished seam or pinked seam and is not suitable for bulky fabrics. Herringbone finish. This finish neatens the raw edge of a heavy material like a flannel. It also holds down the turning, making the seam flat, avoiding the bulkiness. After pressing the seam open, herringbone stitches are worked on the two raw edges, catching the garment. On the right side of the stitches should be quite invisible. Thank you.